Hey there viewer, Ron speaking, and today we're going to be trying something a little different. So, I haven't exactly been making a lot of videos lately because I was focused on finishing my last semester of college. I passed, don't worry. So, now that I'm done with going to college and I don't have to come home and do homework immediately and I just have to focus on working, I have more time to also focus on making videos. Unfortunately, I don't exactly have the tools to make the kind of videos I want to make, so for the time being, I figured I needed a quick solution. You see, I want to make videos just giving my opinions on certain media, whether it's video games, movies, TV, whatever. But again, I'm not exactly equipped to do that right now, and I don't think doing it on a phone would be that professional. Additionally, the videos of me just drawing stuff tend to do better than any other type of video I make. So I figured why not combine the two for the time being and just make videos of me drawing something and then giving my opinion on whatever it is I'm drawing. So, welcome to a new series called Draw and Discuss, where I do exactly that. I draw something and then discuss whatever it is I'm drawing. And I figured I'd start with something I've gone a lot into more recently, as well as something that's been the talk of the town a lot lately, for better or worse, Glitch Productions. See, I had known about Glitch ever since 2021 when I saw thumbnails for Sunset Paradise, and I knew they were attached to SMG4, but I didn't really get into watching any of their stuff until last year, really, when I finally bit the bullet and decided to watch The Amazing Digital Circus, and was surprised by how much I actually enjoyed it. Like, I didn't think it was gonna be bad, rather I just thought it wouldn't be my thing, but I was surprised by how actually pretty smart and sophisticated it was, relative to what the premise would lead you to believe. So I went back and watched every show and pilot they made, including SMG4, which I only got into after they ended. Oops. So I'm gonna draw pictures of each show and then give my thoughts on each one. Starting with the wacky series that started it all, SMG4. Now, around 2014, I was getting really into Nintendo. I was looking up every game they've ever made, all the trivia they had, how much everyone hated the Wii U and then pretends to like it now, and that's really frustrating to me, but that's a story for another day. And one day, I came across a video called Who Let the Chomp Out, which I think is most kids' first exposure to SMG4. I remember watching it and thinking it was really funny, but not watching them much after that because it was around that same time that my mom started really cracking down on what we were allowed to watch on YouTube, and if she saw me watching this video where they make a bunch of rape jokes and say the R slur over and over and just general swearing, that I would not see the light of day again. Despite not watching them a lot, I saw his thumbnails everywhere. The Five Nights at Freddy's one, whoever this character Meggy was, and how she went from an inkling to a human at some point. Like, I could tell kind of what was going on just from the thumbnails. And then one day, in 2025, he announced that he was shutting things down. So I decided to actually watch them only after they shut down. Oops. So I watched a lot of their older videos and newer videos kind of out of order, and honestly, yeah, they're pretty funny most of the time. I will agree that the older videos are probably funnier, even if they've aged kind of awkwardly. Remember, back then, the R word was just kind of another word for stupid, and you could say it as much as you want with no consequences. Now, people argue whether or not it taking a new, slightly more dramatic direction later on in its life, and they're arguing whether or not that was a good thing, but I don't mind the arcs that much. Most of them anyway. I thought the first one, the Waluigi one, had enough silliness to it where it still fit. But later on, they're trying to take it dead seriously, talking about depression, grief, and loss, and it's like, this is the same series where Mario gets his wiener stuck in a door, man. How seriously are you expecting me to take this? Regardless, while I got into the series pretty late, I have enjoyed it, and I'll probably continue watching it. But like, it wasn't exactly a part of my childhood, so I wasn't super sad that it's gone now, but it is a little depressing. Like, I felt the same way when Stampy Longhead ended his series. Like, I don't know what it was like to watch this series, but I do know what it's like to see a childhood YouTuber of yours close things down. Even though you know it's probably for the best, it still stings a bit, you know? And of course, without SMG4 and it taking that new direction, we might not have the whole indie animation boom we've had this decade. Which may or may not be a good thing depending on who you're talking to. I'll get to that when we get to the other shows. But regardless, I think it was important for it to take that direction if it meant we got a lot of these shows. So, there's that. And also why I tried getting this video out in May, although it'll probably come out in June by the time I'm making this, because this May marks the 15th anniversary of the series. And again, it's really important to YouTube history and animation history as a whole. So, next up, we got Glitch's first proper animated series rather than just using Gmod, Metarunner. Now, I actually watched this series last out of all of them because it's their longest series, having a full 3 seasons as opposed to most of the others that only have 1 season. As of now, I've only watched up to season 2. I hear that season 3 is a bit of a step down from the previous 2. I do intend to watch the rest of it, but I wanted to get this video done finally, so I only watched up to season 2. Now, knowing that this was their first series and the absolute mess that was its production, like the 2 brothers who were used to just using Gmod had no idea how long animation would actually take, and then the production was basically held together with Scotch tape, from what I hear. So I didn't know what to expect going in, but I gotta say, for a first series, it's pretty solid. Quick plot summary: a woman named Tari suddenly wakes up from a lab, not knowing who she is or why she's there in this city called Silica City, where, as they put it, video games are everything. Esports are pretty much as big as real sports are in the real world. And some people take it so seriously that they replace one of their arms to enhance their abilities in-game. These are known as the Metarunners. Tari is already equipped with one of these, with the added feature of being able to jump inside the video games. And upon the first time doing that, albeit accidentally, she brings out this character Theo from a game Ultra Jump Mania, which is basically a Mario clone. And the president of one of these companies, Task Corp, his name is Lux, it's a weird name, wants her for her abilities. Meanwhile, she gets ropes in with a rebel group who's trying to take him down because evil corporation. Now, my first thing I have to say is the animation, while admirable, is very uncanny. I don't know if they were using an actual motion capture studio or if they were just trying to animate it to look like motion capture, because that's what most video games look like, but it aged awkwardly, I think. There's an art style revamp in season 2 that I think looks better. Quick side note on the drawing itself: Ultra Jump Mania had its own pilot that was probably supposed to just be the in-universe story of Ultra Jump Mania, but that never went anywhere, leading it to be just a weird one-off. But Theo is a big part of Metarunner, so I'm drawing him here too, and he's somewhat representing his own series. Okay, second actual thing about the show, I thought the action and the actual story they were telling was pretty cool, but the dialogue between characters is very rough. I mean, you could tell this was by the SMG4 crew, who were kind of out of their element, because there are some lingering bits there that just don't really fit without some meme sound effect being used. Like, the back and forth banter between some of them just didn't feel natural to me, but I'm sure it's different for everybody, so I won't harp on that too much. Again, being a first series, it's gonna be a bit rough. But yeah, overall, I've enjoyed what I've seen, and I will finish it. Maybe I'll update my thoughts about it somewhere in the future. But what I really want to talk about is just how neglected this show is. While plenty of Glitch shows have ended, obviously, they still get merch and they still get talked about. But Metarunner rarely, if at all, gets mentioned a lot of the time. I think there's like one Easter egg in Digital Circus where the softball stadium has a Task Corp logo, but that's it. And it's just weird for them to honestly try to not erase, but forget about their first series. Maybe it's just because the other shows have eclipsed in popularity. Maybe it's because it's too connected to SMG4, even if it is entirely its own thing. We'll get to that in a minute. Or maybe it's because of the sudden firing and recasting of Tari's voice actress that they didn't really resolve. They just kind of swept it on the rug and people forgot about it. Who knows, but at least it's not as forgotten as this next show we're going to talk about. Next up, we got a show that's very interesting, as it seems like Glitch actively wants you to forget about it. Sunset Paradise. While Metarunner doesn't get discussed nearly as much, Tari still shows up in some marketing, like for any sort of posters or for the recent Digital Circus screening, which I'll talk about that show more in a minute, obviously. Tari's there in the audience, but This show has basically been completely abandoned. Even if you look through their homepage, it's not mentioned at all. Like, it's been so neglected that I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they want to delist it, but can't, because that would be disrespecting the work that went into it or something. The main reason people theorize as to why the show has been ignored for a while is because while MetaRunner is loosely connected to SMG4, it was always meant to be its own thing, and Tari was added into SMG4 to help promote that show. Whereas this is a direct SMG4 spin-off. This requires a bit of explaining for those who haven't seen it, and considering that the views on this just aren't nearly as high as any other show, I have a feeling a lot of you probably haven't even watched it. Let me explain this as fast as I can. So Meggy started out in SMG4 as an Inkling, and with her entire goal being to win a Splatfest. At some point along the way, she gets forcibly turned into a human, and through training and adjusting to her new body, she finally wins a Splatfest, but because that's all she was ever really working towards, she now doesn't know what to do with her life. So her friends set up a vacation for her to clear her mind and maybe find out what she wants to do. She gets sent to this place called Port Aurora, and that's basically how SMG4 connects to Sunset Paradise. As for the story of the show itself, when she gets there, she finds out that it's been having a lot of trouble with crime lately, and there's this kid named Ori Bori, I think, who is trying to be the sheriff like his grandfather, but that's not really working out, and she basically, her vacation basically gets put on hold as she tries to help out the locals and figure out what's going on with this place, with somebody trying to steal an egg they need for a Phoenix Festival, and along the way, a shadow manifestation of all her insecurities keeps berating her. Now, while I don't think the show deserves to be forgotten like this, and I still feel bad about that, I mean, the show's not the greatest, if I'm being honest. I mean, the animation is fine. It looks a lot less uncanny than MetaRunner does, at the very least. All the voice acting's fine. A handful of the jokes were kind of funny, but... I mean, I just finished watching it as I'm recording this audio, and I'm struggling to remember what happens in it. And I think that says all you need to know. And the funny thing is okay, I'm just gonna assume you guys don't care about spoilers. So she finds out what she wants to do after doing all this, which is helping people. And apparently within SMG4, they were really building up to her being a cop. But then the George Floyd thing happened, and even though SMG4 is made in Australia, they didn't want any connections to that. So they have her wanting to be a coach, which has nothing to do with anything she learned in Sunset Paradise. So if you're only watching SMG4 and you get to that portion of that story, this show doesn't affect anything, really. I honestly feel bad talking down this show so much because, again, I feel really bad and I don't want it to just be abandoned like this. But, I mean, it's not that great and doesn't even affect the main show it's spinning off from. So, yeah, I mean, I know it has its fans and other people are like me are just not wanting it to be forgotten like this, but I don't know. Just because I respect something doesn't mean I have to like it. Alright, now we get to the show that really put Glitch on the map. Murder Drones. For people who weren't watching SMG4 in 2021, this was probably their first Glitch show. Because with the other two, you kind of had to be watching SMG4 to really know about them, whereas this one managed to break past that requirement and become a big hit on its own. Rather fitting for a show that wasn't created by Kevin and Luke Witchigal, the creators of SMG4, and by a new guy entirely, Liam Vickers. On that note, I do find it a little sad that Kevin and Luke's own shows, while decently successful, weren't exactly major hits, whereas the moment they stopped making shows themselves and just started to produce them, that's when Glitch got super big, so they kind of gave up their own dreams to fuel others. I'm sure that's not how they see it. I'm sure they're content with where they are, but I mean, that's gotta sting a little bit for them, doesn't it? As for my thoughts on the show itself, I don't know what to think of it. Okay, let's recap the story as best I can. So there are these worker drones made by humans to do work on this planet, but the humans were wiped out by some environmental things, but other humans from different planets, I guess, didn't want these worker drones to live amongst themselves and just function on their own, so they built their own drones called Murder Drones, title drop, to clear all that out. And there's character Uzi, who's trying to rebel against this and stop it, And along the way, there's this thing called the Absolute Solver that's causing robots to go haywire for their own needs, I think. And then there's, like, problems with her parents. And then I think I zoned out, and then when I got back, I had no idea what the heck was going on. I mean, I had heard going in that it was kind of a confusing show if you weren't in the know, but I was like, I mean, it can't be that bad. But by episode, I mean, I was following along fine for the first 3 or 4 episodes, but after a while, I just didn't know what the heck was happening. So my enjoyment of the show was kind of hampered by that. I know some people probably find it fun that way. I hear this comic Homestuck is kind of the same way, where part of the fun is you don't know what's going on, but I don't think that's exactly my thing. So I was too dumb to follow along with the story. Was there anything else I did like about it? Animation's very good, but that kind of goes without saying for most of these, aside from the first 2. Some of the dialogue was funny. My god, the dialogue. This is kind of the one thing that really took me out of it. The dialogue is, I don't know what you'd call it. You know how people were complaining a while back that indie animation dialogue is all like that? I think this is what they mean. If you watch it, you kind of know what I'm talking about, I think. But it's a little hard to explain it. So during serious moments, they'll be talking very loosely. They'll be saying, it's not quite Marvel dialogue where it's, that just happened. That's more like they say things in a quirky way. And even the word quirky is kind of hard to describe now. There's a lot of gags on signs where it'll say things like, don't wash your hand, you're a robot, stupid. And some of those are funny, but after a while, they kind of got distracting. And I know this is part of the character, but my god, Uzi's catchphrase of bite me got really annoying really quickly, if I'm being honest. But, I mean, people love this show. I mean, it was promised to... It was labeled as Season 1, meaning that a Season 2 was at least considered at one point before the creator decided to just end it here. I don't know what happened with that. So clearly it speaks to a lot of people, but I don't think this show is for me. I respect it, and I enjoyed it enough, but man, that was rough. I think I really have to be a fan of Hot Topic and stuff to like this, but if this show had to happen for Glitch to be where it is now, especially with our next show, then so be it. Alright, here we are. Do you recall the biggest indie cartoon of them all? The Amazing Digital Circus. What a violent roller coaster this has been in the last few months, huh? So, I knew this show existed back in 2023. I mean, it was inescapable. But I wasn't really into indie cartoons at that point, so I didn't watch it. And that's not because I hate indie cartoons or love the big evil corporations or anything. No, it's none of that. It's just most of them oftentimes weren't really my thing. That, and they seem to attract the most toxic fans out of anything, probably because it's made directly online, so there's more of a direct line between the creator and the psycho who should probably be in a mental hospital. There are more Christians out there than you might think, people. But late last year, or around summer of last year, I think, I decided to finally give it a shot, and was, again, I said this at the beginning of the video, but I was really surprised with how much I actually enjoyed it. If you're watching this, I'm assuming you know the story, so I'm not going to recap it. Really, I just want to talk about why I ended up enjoying this so much. I think mainly what I like about it is just how grounded it is despite the setting. Like, you see the outside material, all the bright colors and obnoxious lighting and all that, and you think it's going to be a very wacky show, and a lot of the times it is, but these characters are meant to feel like real people. They're not just cartoon characters. Like, a lot of the characters do fit into the same cartoon tropes we've seen time and time again. Pomni's the neurotic scared one, Gangle's the shy pushover, Ragatha's the nice one, Jax is the jerk, they're supposed to be the funny jerk, Kinger's the crazy one, and Zubal's the one who just doesn't want to get involved in anything. But the show goes deep into why they act that way, and what things that might have happened in their life to make them act that way, or make them think they have to act that way. And what I especially like about it is that most of the time, they're not just spelling it out for you. Yeah, there's 2 scenes that are just direct therapy sessions with Kinger, but other than that, a lot of the time, it's just stuff you're expected to pick up on. which might be giving the fans a little too much credit. I'll get to that. Little side note for this drawing, I only drew my 3 favorite characters, Pomni, Jax, and Kinger. And that's because there's no way I was going to be able to fit everybody in this drawing when I have to draw people from other shows. So, on that note, yes, Jax is one of my favorite characters. I have never seen a character that is so despised and so beloved by different parts of the fandom, and both for completely valid reasons. He is truly an anomaly. Love him or hate him, you cannot deny he is probably the most interesting character in the whole show, and the perfect personification of all the show's themes and the things it explores. You know, the things of dissociation or unhealthy coping mechanisms, or even just the general wackiness of the show. He exhibits all of that in the most clear way possible. So people still not understanding what his deal is really funny and really depressing. Like, the show is not justifying anything he does. It's saying that people do bad things or either to other people or themselves because of outside circumstances. That doesn't exactly justify what they do, it just explains them. That's what the show is saying. So people either saying that he's completely innocent or deserves to go to hell or whatever, that's not at all what the show is saying. But this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Some fans only really hear what they want to hear and not what the show is trying to say. Take that as you will. On the subject of the fans, I think this is definitive proof that a bad fan base can, in fact, ruin a show. Or at the very least, considerably ruin the experience for others. With the constant heckling of the creator Goose Works or leaking the finale, which I have yet to see because I'm recording this before I'm going to see it in theaters. Yes, I'm going to see it in theaters, and yes, I'm going to shower. And everything else surrounding it, I think some creators need to call out the fan base a lot more. Not to mention, bad fan bases can scare away people from even trying a show, like me. One of the main reasons I didn't watch it was because I didn't want to turn into one of those, until remembering, oh yeah, I'm not mentally unwell. Like, I genuinely think some fans are mentally unwell and just haven't checked that yet. Regardless of what may happen with the fan base or wherever Gooseworks may go after this, probably to the mountains of Tibet or something, I still have a lot of respect for the show, and I'm glad I finally watched it. Alright, now we're getting into the shows that, as of right now, only have pilots, so I won't have as much say on them. And to start off, we got the Gaslight District. I don't remember exactly when I watched the pilot, but I remember deciding to check it out one day after Digital Circus opened my eyes to the rest of Glitch's catalog. Not that I didn't know about it, just that, like, oh, I might actually enjoy some of these shows. And my main takeaway from it is that this is really not for me. Alright, get good things out of the way, or at least things I liked. Animation, absolutely stellar. The way it mimics the stop-motion look of movies like Nightmare Before Christmas, or I guess more in particular Coraline or Paranorman, is incredible, especially on an independent CGI budget. That could not have been easy. Also, I noticed a lot of indie cartoons try to go for cute creepy, like, oh, it's a cute little doll or something, but oh, it's actually scary. And this show is just like, no, it's just balls to the wall, scary from start to end. I do appreciate that. It just willing to be super ugly and gross, and without any sort of fake cutesiness to bounce it out or trick people. No, it wears its themes on its sleeve there, and I do appreciate that. Now, the actual story is a little hard for me to pick up on, and that's generally actually my main complaint. It is too freaking fast, man. Like, every shot, every little scene felt like you needed to linger on for just one more second, and it probably would have been fine, but it is like going rapid fire, which I'm sure most people would probably like about it, but for me, it actually made some things hard to understand. I do hear they're gonna slow things down slightly for when the series is fully picked up, which is good. Like, that's all I need. I don't need it to slow it down 100%, because clearly the fast pace is part of its identity. But just slowing things down just enough for some people like me to properly pick up what's going on, that would be appreciated. Well, that and the story basically being hell good, heaven bad, like Hazbin Hotel again. Although I do feel like it handles this conceit better than that show does, and this is only the pilot, so take that as you will. Like, it's more so using it as a way to show how the high and elite ostracize those on the ground floor, basically. which is better than just an outright attack on religion. I don't know if that's what Hospital Hotel is. I haven't actually seen it. I've just seen plenty of videos on it. And despite being a Christian, this sort of stuff doesn't really bother me as much as it makes me roll my eyes and move on. As for why this show isn't exactly for me, this sort of overly creepy stuff is just generally not my thing. Not that I'm scared of it, rather it's just not the aesthetic I generally like. I like movies like Nightmare Before Christmas and Paranorman and all that, but it's not an aesthetic I'm 100% in love with, you know? I'm sure for people who love this sort of thing, like Halloween is their favorite time of year and they're the type of people to shop at Hot Topic and all that, this show is a goldmine for them, and I'm glad you like it. It's just that it's not an aesthetic for me, at least not in excess like the show is. But again, if it's your thing, that's great. Just because something isn't my thing doesn't mean I have to say it's bad. I will probably watch the second episode just to see if things are adjusted slightly to fit more with my taste. But if not, I'm glad the show exists at all. Just to, again, for it being unapologetically gross and creepy rather than trying to be subversively gross and creepy, if that makes sense. Again, I'm not calling the show bad. I'm just saying it's not my thing. If you absolutely love it, that's great. Not everything is going to appeal to everyone. I think more people need to understand that. Alright, now we get to a show that is probably the ballsiest show Glitch has picked up. A show that many people cite as being nothing more than a hit piece from a jaded Disney animator, which is partially what it is, but there's a lot more to it than that. The Knights of Guinevere. Created by one Dana Terrace and a couple other people that I can't remember right now, of Owl House fame, which I have not seen any of, so I have no opinion on that. Now, my opinions on the show are complicated, to say the least. Before you ask, no, it's not because I'm some Disney adult who pisses his pants every time my favorite company is insulted. Rather, we've seen all this before. I mean, the whole story is pretty much just showing how evil Disney and companies like it are. With the main guy being a clear Walt Disney, I don't even want to say parody because that would imply some sort of comedy involved when the show isn't really funny that often, and it's not really trying to be funny, it's more dramatic. Like, I think this is gonna be, when it's fully out there, it's gonna be Glitch's most serious show. Anyway, this is Walt Disney stand-in who built this place called Park Planet that became so huge it pretty much took over the entire world, and now nobody can afford anything, and they have to work with the evil company to survive, all while he and other people like his daughter are trying to beat whatever life they can get out of this mascot they've had, Guinevere, who is clearly a Mickey Mouse stand-in. Like, if you know anything about Disney at all, none of this is subtle. This is all be pretty obvious. Now, when this came out, everyone was losing their minds. They're like, wow, this takes a huge stand against Disney and capitalism, and oh, Disney must be so scared. Have you paid attention to any media since at least 1940? Everyone has made fun of Disney. Everyone hates Disney. Like, anything from The Simpsons to the Tex Avery cartoons to Veggie Tales has made fun of Disney and their characters and their business practices. This is nothing new. Making fun of Disney is about as old as Disney itself. It's like when South Park made fun of Trump in the recent season. Everyone's like, oh wow, this is so bold. Have you not paid attention to a single comedian for the past 10 years? This is the only joke they know how to tell. Jeez. Now you could argue that those are all more comedic examples and this takes a more serious stance. While I can't think of most things that made fun of Disney in a more serious way, making fun of capitalism is about as big as capitalism itself. Once again, every show has to make fun of capitalism and not providing a proper alternative, but that's not really a conversation I want to have right now. Now that I brought this up, I feel like I need to clarify this just so nobody comments at me about it. I don't love capitalism. I think it has gone too far and has caused a lot of problems. But considering how every country that has tried something else has either died or on the verge of dying, I'd rather put up with it than anything else. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make with all of that is that this show is really not saying anything that hasn't been said a million times by now. And I'm sorry, but I seriously doubt Disney is shaking in their boots over this show. I mean, last year, they had 2 movies cross over $1 billion, one being a live-action remake and one being an okay sequel to an animated movie they made 10 years ago. So this show is not even gonna make a dent, let's be real. Now, with all that said, this pilot was incredible. Yes, I know, I just made a whole, like, a couple minutes there of me just saying that the show, what it's trying to say, is going to be futile at the end of the day. But that shouldn't take away from the fact that this was an amazing pilot. I mean, the art and animation almost perfectly replicating Disney's Renaissance look while still mixing in Dana's usual style. All the music, all the backgrounds, and little details you can pick up on. All the art was incredible. That kind of goes without saying. Especially for Glitch's 2D show. For the first 2D show, it looks pretty good. Like, their 3D stuff is great, but I'm gonna be honest, I just generally prefer 2D animation. So, already, this is gonna appeal to me more than something like Gaslight. The writing is pretty good and a lot more quiet than most of Glitch's shows. Even something like Digital Circus, which I was praising for its more subtle dialogue, in most cases anyway. And I think what I like most about it is that even though it is, again, a scathing takedown of Disney's business practices, it is not an attack on the art that they've made. Because regardless of whatever Disney has done to get to where they are now, and all their bad practices and the bad things they've done, the movies they made are still really important to millions of people. And this show acknowledges that. And this is emphasized by the fact that Guinevere, the mascot for this evil corporation, is not painted as the bad guy. And I'm gonna go on a little rant now, if you won't mind. I really don't like when people use Mickey Mouse or Mario as the actual stand-in for the evil companies they're a part of, because it makes the characters look like the bad guy when they did nothing. They're not real. They can't do anything. But then that makes people seem to actually hate Mickey or Mario or whatever other character. Whenever this show has Guinevere being viciously mauled or having her insides ripped out or whatever, it's showing that the characters and the art is just as much a victim of this sort of stuff as the people are. And just because the practices are bad doesn't mean that the art they've made doesn't matter anymore. I remember the character Frankie, the big, strong woman, says something, I don't remember off the top of my head, but something along the lines of, this company has changed my life, and being able to do that for others is what makes it worth it. Again, it was something along those lines, but that line feels very personal. Like, that's coming directly from Dana. Like, that was her mindset when she made the Owl House for Disney. Just wanting to make art that would change other people's lives, just like Disney probably changed hers. And then she left the company completely burned. I know she said that she wasn't purely fueled by hatred for this show, and that the love of Disney's art, specifically from the 20th century, is what kept her going. But let's be real, I don't think she would have come up with this idea if she hadn't worked there and seen it all firsthand and gotten burned herself. On that note, I like how Frankie isn't just a one-dimensional attack on Disney adults. But honestly, that's probably what I would have done if I was writing this, because I'm very mean with writing. But I like how she is genuine, you know? So yeah, my feelings on this show are complicated. I like it a lot, and I like what it's trying to do. It's just that what it's trying to do is something that millions of others have tried to do and fallen flat on their face as the companies they criticize get bigger and bigger. Disney is just too big to fail right now, and every time they do fall, they get right back up. So, call me nihilistic, but I really don't think this show is going to change anything in the real world. I'm sorry, that is just how life goes sometimes. But none of my slightly nihilistic views on the world should take away from the fact that this was an amazing pilot, and I can't wait to see more of it. I just know that it'll probably be all for naught. And now we get to the most recent pilot as of making this video. And just a side note here, I'm skipping Lackadaisy because it's not really a glitch show. They're just funding it and importing it, basically. Anyway, Gameoverse. Fun fact, it took me typing that out to finally realize the actual pun here. Game over. Gameoverse. Ha ha ha. Anyway, this has quite the history behind it, as it was based on a series of shorts from 2009 by the creator Rubber Ross, who is a longtime Newgrounds animator. I have only seen a few of those by the time this pilot premiered, and it was only in preparation for this pilot, just out of curiosity where it came from. Now, going into this, I actually wasn't sure if I was gonna like it. Because, yeah, I love video games. It's one of my main hobbies. I'd argue one of my main personality traits. Not to the point where I hate women or anything, if we're going for that gamer stereotype. Rather, it's just one of my favorite things in general. That said, I've never particularly liked shows about video games like Glitch Techs, because hearing all this gamer lingo in front of me on a TV screen, for some reason, feels way harder to stomach than just seeing it in a YouTube video. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. It's just TV shows about video games or set in a video game world just never do it for me. But I was pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed this one. Not to the degree others seem to, like others have fallen in love with it for less than ideal reasons. But I still really liked it. The show is still relatively new, so I will recap the pilot very quickly here. It's about this cat, I'm drawing here Kit, and her robot sidekick Caboodle, who are video game characters who've already defeated the main villain in their own universe. Problem is, the universe they're in decides to blow up any game worlds when the game is done, or in this case, when the hero defeats the villain. So they go around to other video game worlds trying to stop the hero from completing the main goal, otherwise their entire world will collapse. Meanwhile, this evil group Syntax is trying to help the heroes win, so the worlds can blow up and they can harvest whatever's left of it for their own needs, because it's very clear that they have ulterior motives here. Let me just say right now, the premise of the show, when it was announced, actually had me a little bit worried. Like, oh, the heroes are gonna destroy the world and the villains are gonna save it. And that was kind of worrying to me, because there are so many stories about villains being the real heroes, and it's getting a little bit concerning, because a lot of times we're like, oh, they're actually misunderstood, when 9 times out of 10 they're making the villains the heroes because I want to party and have sex all the time. But here, no, the bad guys are still very much the bad guys. It's clear they have different motives for helping the heroes, and they're planning something big, or they're gonna redo the game-overs they're in for their own needs. So good. The bad guys are still definitively the bad guys. That's just a personal thing. I know most people probably didn't even think of that, but yeah. The thing is, I'm not sure what the hero's long-term plan is. Like, yeah, they're gonna stop the heroes from defeating the villain so the world doesn't blow up. All right. They can't keep that up forever. Because what are they gonna do when, like, they're not keeping an eye on this universe and he does end up saving the day? And also, what do you do for games that don't really have a definitive ending, like Minecraft? What happens then? Are they just there forever? Is there no real goal? And I'm assuming they're only doing this while they figure out a way to stop the worlds from being blown up, or to figure out why they're blowing up, or why it's programmed that way, or whatever. But there's a lot of questions, and I guess that's the idea behind a pilot. It's meant to leave you asking questions, so you want more. But some of this I'm not entirely sure they thought through, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Now, this show has caused a lot of controversy, and no, it's not for any objectionable content. It's not for them saying slurs or whatever. It's because the girls are too hot. Grow up, dude. I mean, on the one hand, I get the complaint that all the guys have these varied designs and all the girls look relatively similar. But on the other hand, have you ever played video games before? That's just how it goes. It's pretty accurate. And them complaining that Kit's in a bikini for most of the episode. She's at the beach and she's underwater. She's not going to do that in a burlap sack or whatever. Although I will say I was blindsided by her being in a bikini for most of the episode. I was not expecting that. Personally, I'm indifferent to fan service most of the time, as long as the character is still a character first and foremost, and it doesn't get in the way of the story. And in this case, it just fits the setting. She's in a dolphin world for most of it. And with the amount of outfits she has that are also a little revealing, I think she just likes dressing like that. Like, when she cycles through the outfits or in the end credits, I think she just likes wearing different outfits. So this is done willingly on her part. But the show's pretty funny. I like video games, so it just hits perfectly for me there. And the story, while a little bit confusing if you think about it for a bit too long, is still pretty good. So I'm excited to see what comes of it later. I'm glad it's finally out after all these years. So in closing, I just want to talk about my thoughts on Glitch as a whole. I'm glad they exist, but it's clear that they're kind of struggling keeping the business going, because even though they're supposed to be an independent business, they are still a business at the end of the day, so some controversies are gonna arise. But ultimately, I'm glad they exist, and I can't wait to see more. And hey, since I'm trying to make shows of my own, maybe I'll be working for them one day too. Probably not though. So thank you for listening to my rambling, and until next time I decide to upload, see ya, viewer.